What's going on, guys? I just ordered this new T300 RS GT edition off of Wish.com. I'm super excited to jump into sim racing and start my sim racing journey. I've been waiting a long time for this. What the f is this?
Ah yes, being a car enthusiast, or car enjoyer if you will. As such, I wanted a more immersive experience, which is why I picked myself up a Thrustmaster setup. Now getting this setup was something I had planned on getting for a long time, as I wanted a better experience from my video car gaming. Drifting in Forza can be fun, but after a while it gets extremely easy, to the point where I feel I can drift with my feet. So I wanted a more immersive and realistic experience. I had held out on getting a setup as the price wasn't something I was ready to pull the trigger on for a little while. Eventually I went with a middle-of-the-road option, as I wasn't ready to spend money on a direct drive wheel being my first wheel, and I wanted something a little better than one of the real cheap Logitech ones. After I had got my setup situation wasn't ideal, as my desk didn't have a spot I can put my wheel and add-ons on. So I had, for the time being, to use this additional table to get any kind of sessions in with the wheel. As you can see why this wouldn't be the ideal situation. I would have to set it up and tear it down when I wanted to use it, or when I wanted to actually access my computer. I had this situation for a couple of sessions before I decided to get an actual stand to put my stuff on. I hit up the Amazon machine and went with this GT Omega stand, and after I had already received it, I saw that there were different prices listed on Amazon for the same stand. So if you decide to get this stand, which I honestly can't complain about, it's really solid, and if you want to turn it into an actual racing cockpit, there is an additional piece you can get later. Now, with my stuff set up on an actual stand, I was able to just leave all my stuff set up and pull it into place whenever I wanted to use it, which was a way better situation, and after putting one final touch, I was ready to race, drift, cruise, all the typical car things that car guys love. Funny thing too, I was actually contemplating a Mishimoto shift knob, but I thought that was a little bit too pricey for just something like this, so I just picked up a cheap one when I was at AutoZone picking up some car supplies. I saw that the typical settings people were using were 900 degrees. My wheel was set to 1080 by default, so I decided to leave it like that. I don't know if that was a good or bad idea, but that's what I did. And that's what I learned on, and I decided to just throw myself into the fire. I tried multiple different games, getting the feel for each, and ultimately all of this would still add to my overall practice on getting used to this new rig. And I was honestly loving every minute of it. Of course it's tough at first, but most things are. Everything takes time and practice, and this being no different. So if you are someone learning to use a wheel setup and are finding you're struggling, just keep practicing, and everyone learns things at a different pace. But with all of that aside, here is some of the stuff I got into with this new setup. So, as I had stated before, my first couple of sessions were on that additional table, which I didn't record as it wasn't an ideal recording environment. But my first couple of sessions went like this. I started with Forza Horizon 5, and I know it's a little more on the arcadey side, but it has some sim elements in it, so simcade if you will. And I had a bunch of cars to pull from at any moment, and I was able to use an open world. So for the first one, I felt this was a good way to start getting the feel for the wheel. I went to the stadium parking lot and just practiced doing figure eights around the light post. I generally would use the out of car cam, as now that being on a wheel, I was taking note of how the driver's hands didn't make a full rotation, which kind of bothered me. So if I wasn't using behind the car, I would use the dash cam, which would make for some cool instances.
Turn sharp left.
However, at the end of making this video, I have now been using the cockpit view, and I've been trying to ignore the fact that the hands don't make a full rotation. During those sessions that I didn't record, when I felt I had got the hang of going around the light poles, I went to this town that was one of my favorite spots on controller, and while being a little sloppy, I was still able to chain drift a lot of what I would do on controller. The difference being this experience was way better and more engaging than when on the controller. Obviously my lines could use some work, but I felt I was getting a decent hang of drifting in Forza on the wheel. Another area I liked to go was this big city area that has a lot of curvy roads. But I didn't go here as much, as I would sometimes forget how to get to this area. There was also the area that's a parking lot with the shipping containers that sometimes I knew how to get to and sometimes I didn't. I would sometimes go there. I don't have any footage of going there because at the time of recording this I was trying to get there and I could not find it. So much for that. But anyway, that's how my first sessions on Forza went. My next game of choice was CarX Drift, which is a simple game with very good drifting physics. I actually found it a little harder to get used to on wheel than with Forza, but I had a lot of fun with this. CarX is a game I feel, while being simple, has a great deal of car customization, and while I haven't spent a lot of time in online lobbies, I like the fact it feels like the old days of internet gaming, where there would be just a lobby everyone joins and everybody does their thing. It feels like a game very car culture focused and does a great job of catering to car people. Of course, more specifically the car drift community, but it's still such a great game. But I would be careful having the in-game chat on, as I feel it can probably get you in trouble on certain platforms. While I didn't spend a lot of time on CarX, at least for the recording of this video, I do plan on playing it a lot, and as of finishing the recording of this video, I have been playing it a lot. And I have been practicing doing tandems with myself, as that's such a cool feature that the game has, where you can lay down a line and follow yourself to get used to doing tandems. But that was my CarX drift experience, and there will be most likely more of CarX on the channel. The next game I went on was BeamNG.drive, a game I hadn't played since 2016. So I knew I had missed out on a lot of updates, and figured what better time to get back into it than with a completely new way to play. Being out of the loop of the game for so long, I did pick a drift car and went on a map and messed around a bit. I tried a couple of different maps and different cars and found that some of the early cars didn't feel like they had a good force feedback. I tried multiple maps, as most of this stuff was new to me, and it was not only a test of my wheel but also exploring new content that I hadn't seen in the game before. Then I tried one of what I think was a newer car, and the force feedback had felt really good. A lot better than a lot of the cars I had just tried. So now it was time to play around. There were actually a couple of newer vehicles that felt pretty good on the wheel, and made note of them for later. I also messed around with automation, making multiple different cars because they can be exported into BeamNG, before I tried another game that has become a big one over the years for the PC sim drifting, and that's Assetto Corsa. I was looking forward to Assetto, as from what I had seen, the modding community has really brought a lot of life to the game. But this will be from the perspective of out of the box, no mods, and even no DLC for that matter, as I had just the base game at the time of this video, which after the recording of this video I have gotten all of the DLC, but I haven't messed with mods just yet. But I will in the future, of course. But anyway, the first impression I got was pretty underwhelming, however, as I felt there weren't a lot of cars to pick from because I didn't have the DLC. So I ultimately went with the Mustang as I felt it would have enough power to drift while still being able to control. Side note, I didn't know that there were different variations of some vehicles, so I had no idea that there were drift variants of some cars. So, yeah. So I got in the Mustang and it took the first turn and it felt really good. I also liked that the hands actually do what you would expect. They actually went around with the wheel as my wheel also spun. That was really appreciated. But as I continued, I felt there was something I was missing. So I tried the 8.6, and it didn't have the power to slide like the Mustang, which was what I had expected, and that's why I chose the Stang in the first place. So I went back to Beam for a little bit as I felt there was just something that I was missing from Assetto, and I figured I would look into it later. The next day, I went on to Assetto with just mouse and keyboard to poke around to see if there was anything I missed, to see if maybe I could tune the cars. And that's when I found that some cars had drift versions. So, I pulled my sim rig into place and fired it up, and I had to redo my wheel settings, probably because I launched the game without it plugged in. This time, I saved the settings so then I wouldn't have to remap it, because I did have to remap it. And then I hopped in the E30, and I was off. The first corner was kind of sloppy, but as I continued, it started to feel really good. Now this was really nice, and I liked this a lot. However, I had only put in a couple hours into the game, but I know the potential this game has. With all of the DLC and all of the mods that the community makes for it, I know I'll be hooked for a while on this when I really dig into it. But for the sake of this video, I had put this game aside as the next game was gonna be a big one. The next game is part of a series that I am no stranger to, and as of recently has been shrouded in controversy by the community due to poor development choices with what the community has stated as predatory microtransactions and the always online DRM for what is mostly a single player experience. Yes, that's right, I'm talking about Gran Turismo 7. It's a real shame that this series now has this haze around its reputation, as the dev team throughout the years have shown just how much passion they have for cars and motorsports, where they have actually even played a role in the development of real cars, one being the new Toyota Supra, as the FT1 concept appearing in GT6 and helping Toyota visualize the car. Like I had said, I am no stranger to these games, and while I did pick up Sport and GT5, the last game of the series that I really played a great deal was GT4 before hopping ship to the Forza Motorsport games, as I had an Xbox 360 as the start of that console generation to follow all of the homies, and I also missed out on GT6 as it was right at the beginning of a new console generation, and I had missed out on what I feel was the end of an era of the GT series before the series shifted focus to its content that gets changed daily, being the used car dealership and the daily marathon to unlock more vouchers as an attempt to keep players coming back every day rather than having the full game available at all times. A couple of quick side notes, one being about the vouchers, which I had received tons of the things and I have consistently gotten the lowest tier prize from them. The other note I'd like to mention is when I was given an invitation to Bugatti, not too far into my play of this game, and me thinking, oh shit, I just got a free Bugatti, and then realized I was invited to purchase one with all of the credits I don't have. I picked up GT7 without really paying attention to what was going on with the series, as I picked up Sport without knowing that it was also an always online kind of deal. But that controversy aside, let's get into it. Now, going into this game, I knew I would have some grinding to do before I was going to be able to drift, as this had a proper single player attached, and with that a car RPG portion, if you will, by buying cars from either used or new car lots. And the used cars swap all the time, so to get something you may want, you have to check back every so often. Also, having to maintain your vehicle, as oil changes actually keep the car healthy and protect it from performance loss and potentially destroying your engine, leading to actually having to rebuild. Which, this is actually stuff that I love about this game. So I first had to progress the story, and the way a lot of the stuff unlocks is by growing your car collecting level. I first started doing my races, and while yes, I could use the manual shifter, some cars actually work better with what the car is actually equipped with. This is a feature that I actually like, as this Honda had paddle shifters, and if I were to hold the clutch down, I couldn't free rev the engine as it didn't have an H-pattern manual gearbox. This is a feature that BeamNG also has, as some of the cars that were automatic would actually just be put into park or drive using the H-pattern shifter, and the clutch pedal would do nothing. So when driving certain cars in GT7, I would drive them with what they were equipped with, whether that be paddle shifters or H-pattern shifter, as it seemed the car favored whatever it was equipped with better. After progressing a bit and getting some money, I checked out what options I had for what was going to be built into my drift car. I started with the new cars to see what they had, and was impressed by the fact that they had an Amuse Body Kit S2K. I checked out probably all of the dealers' new cars before I ultimately went to see what was in the used car lot, and wouldn't you know it, 4 prime candidates for my first drift car right next to each other. We had an S13, an S15, a 180 SX, and a Salady, which would have been the 180 SX with the Sylvia front end, which I love that they have that in this game. But I ultimately went with the S13. So this was going to be the old girl. Right off the rip, I wanted to see what the car felt like, so I immediately took it to some circuits, and then under the circuit options I saw that there were drift circuits. I had no upgrades or anything, and wanted to see what she did. It went as well as one might expect. That open diff life. Another thing that was kinda weird was that traction control was for some reason on, but not all the way, which is weird. I thought I had turned it off, which I later found out how to turn it off fully. I was also not too fond of the fact that there wasn't really any big open areas I could really practice counter steering. I planned on progressing more to get some upgrades for the old girl, and with the next circuit I was struggling keeping up with the lead car as my Uno's Roadster, aka my Miata, that I got as a prize, just wasn't cutting it. With upgrades on the old girl, this was her first race. I could not believe how wild it was to catch up to this damn 8.6. This was one of the things that I sometimes got annoyed with, being that all of the races felt like, as I've seen members of the community say, catch the rabbit races, where you start from the back of the pack and have to jump 8 positions in sometimes 2 laps. It sometimes really makes you want to punt these AI drivers into the wall, especially when they do stuff like this. And yes, this is from the perspective of the AI, and yes, that is me that they sent off the course. But I like to try to keep it clean for that bonus money at the end. But of course, I sometimes just lay into them into a corner for revenge and reset the race. Luckily, the old girl came through after a few attempts, and I put that 8.6 in its place, which I have no idea why that thing was so fast. After progressing a bit, and getting the angle kit, it was time to take her back out. Now this is where I had some trouble, and that was getting the car in a place where it felt good. See, just like Forza, you have to tune the car yourself, and I don't like looking up tunes, I like to make my own. So this was trial and error to try to get it dialed in, especially as I didn't have a nice open area to practice counter steering. The tuning, however, is something I really like, and I felt it was something that Assetto lacked, as I'm someone that likes to buy the car, build the car, and tune the car, as it makes it feel more of your own rather than here's the mod, here's the car, use this mod, use this car, which makes the controversy over GT7 all the more upsetting, as it has that car RPG factor that I really enjoy. And the game, while I know has had updates for the physics that players have liked, disliked, and whatnot, overall I thought the game felt pretty good. Back on track, I progressed some more until I got to the American courses, and this is where things changed. When I got to Willow Springs, I finally found a big open area I can practice on. I even used these cones on the track to practice my counter steering and trying to get my circles nice and tight. Funny thing I noticed about the cones is that they don't show up in the replays in the spot that you push them to. This is also where I started using the hood cam, as again, another game that can't get the hands on the wheel correct, which is crazy to me from a AAA developer that can aid in the development of real-life cars, but can't develop functioning hands on a steering wheel. Assetto and CarX Drift so far were the only ones that had hands that make sense on the wheel. So, I don't know, man. Anyway, I didn't really like the out-of-car cam on GT7 as well, so I mostly just opted for the hood cam, as I liked it the most. Now, I ran this course many times just practicing. While I have a good amount of scores on here, I only actually have a couple that I recorded, as most of my practice I did while just chilling in my boxers. And of course socks, as I wouldn't work my pedals barefoot. So here are the 2 runs that I recorded, and while they are sloppy, they really show how in some sections where I would mess up, I other times would nail that section, but mess up in another. But that is how learning and practicing goes. It's all part of the process. And of course, always remember to give the old girl a wash and a change of oil after putting her through her paces. After the time I spent going through these games and using the wheel on them, I honestly find it hard to try to go back to controller. I actually tried with Horizon 5, and I didn't get the same enjoyment out of it as I did with the wheel. Of the games I played through, each has its strengths and weaknesses. Horizon and CarX both are the more arcadey games out of the bunch, and while Horizon seems to have died very quickly, as it feels like that game is just Horizon 4 on a new map and giving cars branded as new cars that we had in previous games. CarX caters a lot to the car community, more importantly the drift community, and that's a good thing where Horizon has always shined with its open world maps. Beam has the potential to be an elite top-of-the-class sim with its game being built on an unrivaled car physics engine. Assetto feels very good and the mod community have given it so much life, however it doesn't have that car RPG element that I love, being able to get a car and make it your own. GT7 is unfortunately hindered by controversy and is unfortunate as the out-of-the-box experience of the game is very good but sullied by awful DRM practices that, with the concept of always online, makes the game eventually unplayable when the servers go down, and especially when the servers get shut down indefinitely. If there was a game that took the modding community of Assetto, the car physics of Beam, the car RPG, car passion of GT7, mixed with an open world of Horizon, with gas stations, actual real-world racetracks, places that events can be held at, and car meet spots, well, I think that would be the ultimate car sim experience. So my plan is to continue making sim rig related videos as well as whatever else catches my attention. And I'm someone with a wide range of interests. However, I think I will have a big focus on making sim-related content for a while. So, if you made it this far in the video, I thank you, and hope you join me on the rest of where I go. So with that, have a good one, and until next time, take it easy.